All right, well, then we can go ahead and start the meeting. Amy?
Great. So we do the call to order and the
Salute to the flag.
salute to the flag. Do we do roll call?
Yes. All right, Commissioner Wall,
Here, present.
Commissioner Simon,
Here.
Commissioner Rouse,
Here.
Commissioner Alden. Commissioner Alden.
Here
Okay. And Commissioner Johnson,
or there.
I should say committee member, and committee member Foster is absent. And pledge the flag.
Okay. All rise. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge
To the flag.
States
to
of
the
America.
flag
States of America.
of the United States of America.
To the republic which it stands, one nation,
Liberty and justice.
indivisible, under God.
Yep, the pledge on Zoom with the time lag is just a little strange.
We'll practice.
Yeah.
Okay, approval of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from our previous meeting.
Great. Have a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Any questions about the minutes or anything that happened last meeting? What I will say is there was a request last meeting to have binders for committee members with all relevant documents, including the cap. That is sitting here. So for all of you on the screen, when you return, you will have that resource.
Yay.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
Thank you very much to everyone who put that together. Thanks, Bob.
that's Bob.
Well, no, that was
Bob
also
is-
the town clerk.
Town.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Okay. Then we will open time for any public comment for non-agenda items.
I do not see any members of the public on the Zoom, and there's no one present here in the audience.
Bob, do we need to enter into the record that our committee is one person smaller?
No,
Okay.
you can have between 5 and 7 members, so you're still fine at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, so no public comment. So that allows us to move straight into the agenda. Is there anything else, Bob, before we do that?
No,
All right. Okay, so committee member updates is the first order of business. And who would like to go first?
I can go first. I'll just say that the policy subcommittee has been busy reviewing the recommended reach codes from the county that are under review. And I know it's going to be on the agenda today, but I just wanted to thank Phil and Leslie for giving time to that, and we look forward to sharing.
Great. What about Martin? Do you want to represent on communications?
we're
Yes,
not doing subcommittees yet. We're just doing
Oh,
general
sorry, that's right.
committee.
Oh. Never mind.
Well, I can do a quick update and Leslie, please chime in on last meeting. Leslie and I had mentioned the Lions Club meeting that we participated in, which I think was productive and engaging, and it allowed us to sort of test our advocacy presentation that we can use around town. So I think that was a great forum for discussion and a great way to sort of test that content. And we have action items post that in terms of how we might want to refine and think about future meetings like that. But more of those would be great. So Leslie, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, I wanted to, well, as we do updates, David is at the ULI conference in Dallas. I'm in San Jose at the Green Biz Verge conference, and there's lots that we're both learning separately. So it's a little bit of just a member update that we're really focused here on the intersection with business and climate solutions. A lot of high tech stuff, but a lot of equity is being discussed as well. Really broad vision and broad conversation. So it's been really, really fabulous to be in person again. And then back to Amy's comments. Yes, we have sort of initial PowerPoint presentation that we're working on to make it self-explanatory in a sense, so that instead of having talking notes, it can be shared as a PDF with organizations, and they can read, to a certain extent, they can read what we would be saying in an event. And then that can be also used by any other members of the committee or people that we drag into this as our volunteers to be able to share with community members. So yeah, thank you. David, I want to thank David and Phil also for the work, especially David for the work that he's put into comments about the electrification ordinances. And thank you, Amy, for being such a good partner.
Any other updates from committee members outside of subcommittee content?
I have a couple of bits of good news. One is that the town is in the final stages of the hiring process for your new climate action and adaptation coordinator.
Great.
So she should hopefully be on board
Fabulous.
meeting.
So final means an offer extended? Oh,
Yes.
fantastic. It's
Yes.
really exciting.
It is.
Great.
Yep. So I think you'll be very impressed, and you'll meet next month.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
And then secondly, we held the first Marin Green Home Building Tour. And it was an overwhelming success. We had over 500 participants, which really exceeded our expectations. It was a 2-evening webinar, and 10 homes that were showcased. So went really, really well. And so all of those homes and both webinars will be posted on the website. I will send you all links by the end of the week. So I think it might be
Fantastic.
worth taking a look. Again, each webinar evening was only 2 hours, but it was a real quick pace between the home tours and then individual experts talking about heat pumps and how to get the most out of your electric panel, induction cooking, all those good things. So
That's great.
yeah, so I think it was a real success, and hopefully becomes an annual event.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Besides putting it on our own website, will that be widely shared across all the communities, the NGOs, everybody? And can I put it on the Drawdown Bay Area website for Marin County?
Sure. Again, I will give you the link to the website for the home tour, and then it has all the resources there, all the videos.
Okay, great. But it's okay to post.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
And
Excellent.
Yes. And I would just suggest the committee members, as you go through the coming year, if you know of really interesting Corte Madera green home examples, whether they're multifamily or second units or single family homes, let me know, and we'll put them on a list and contact the homeowners, and we'll have a good tour for next year.
I can tell you right now, there's a house at the intersection of Stetson and Chapman that's under construction, and it's green everything. It's 6-inch walls. It's under construction, so it might be a good time to grab some video of the construction process. And Peter Schwartz, who lives at 381 Chapman, my next door neighbor, was an advisor to that. And Peter's done a whole bunch of work on his house as well recently. So those might be 2 places to start. And Dave has done some work also.
Okay. I'll reach out to you, Leslie, then and get those
Yeah.
details. Thank you. Okay, that was all I had.
Can I ask another quick question about those resources? And if this is for a future agenda item, but is there an opportunity to make those available in the planning department somehow? So people that are thinking about expansion would have those resources readily available?
Yeah, I'll talk to the town manager about that.
Yeah.
What about having it on DVDs that people could check out
It is.
from the planning department?
There are some good posted resources in terms of rebates, locations and all that sort of thing. But yes, I'll share that with the town manager. Okay.
Moving on to subcommittee updates. Who would like to go first? Martin, can I call on you since I prematurely did it? earlier?
Sure, sure, that's fine. Well, we've been doing regular articles for the Chronicles. And what I do, I'm still in New Hampshire, but one thing is I will be at the next meeting physically unless I'm ill or something. So I look forward to that. And Leslie and Meredith, I poll them whenever I do the draft so that they can comment and add things to it. And that's been very, very useful, provides good exposure. So, other than doing the Chronicles, I haven't, there's nothing really to update. Leslie, is there something from a communication standpoint that you'd like to add?
No, I really appreciate that you've gotten, you share things and ask for input. I think it's going well. I think there's lots more that we can be doing, but we need more people in the, excuse me, in the game. So.
Yes, and I hope that, by being physically there, next month and for the continuing on, that I'll be able to contribute more in an ad hoc way as well. So I think that's about the end for my update, unless there's questions about it. One of the things I wanted to do with this next one, which is coming out on Friday, is to include whatever we, whatever we decide at this meeting with respect to recommendations to the town council, if we all approve of that taking place.
Great.
That's it.
So I know last time too, we talked a little bit about for promotions, items that would be at the tables or things that we would push out at events. Leslie, I know it's more of like a resource piece. Do we need a couple of volunteers to support this effort?
Great question. I think that we need a lot more volunteers, period, but let's define what the effort is, what we would be asking ourselves and others to do, because I think that would be helpful in recruiting. And if we've already done that, we probably have, and I don't have it in front of me, I apologize. But yes, we definitely need to put our shoulders to that wheel and develop more things.
We discussed last time, and I'm just looking at the notes, website enhancements, which I think we're going to cover, Bob. Then the Chronicles and other newsletter outreach, and just the preparation of the outreach materials. So that would include the tabling items. So I think if volunteers are needed, then we should think about how we can do that, which we seem to get at events, but we should think through how we pull in more people to support that. And Martin, I know I passed the name on to you.
Yes. That person is interested in more of an environmental and cleanup activity, and it doesn't really dovetail with what we need doing for the climate action.
Okay.
That was my assessment. However, what I want to do when I get back is find out where else that person might help out within the other groups that Corte Madera has.
Okay. And then I'll just note it too, because I think there were a couple other people that were passed off to me. So knowing that we need help on the promotions, if these people reach out to me, I can send them your way.
Amy, do you think that Meredith would have some candidates as well?
Yeah, I think that could be a potential. I also think there's a climate committee as part of Redwood that we might be able to tap potentially.
Mhm.
I might also suggest, again, I think the town of Fairfax has prepared a number and have offered
Yeah,
to share them with you. So that might be a good source.
Very good.
Thank you for those updates. I'm happy to go. And then I'll turn it over to you guys on policy. So there is an attachment in our notes or our agenda packet. And so I just prepared, I was working on engagement and events, and I decided to merge those two efforts and set the goals and talk about what success looks like. And then some key learnings, which I think pull in together the promotional pieces as those develop. But I would love if anybody had a chance to review this. I'd love any feedback on the goals and success. We can do that now, or we can talk about it at the next meeting. But I would love, I picked some goals out in terms of interaction and touches in the community. And I sort of threw a dartboard, but you can have a look, and I again welcome any feedback there. And then I'm starting to build a community timeline of events. Again, to your point on volunteers, Leslie, we need volunteers to staff the tables. But what occurred to me doing this is that we need en masse. So we can continue to do these events monthly if we decide that's the right frequency, but we really need sort of a bigger platform. And as we think about and have more of a runway to some of the timing of events, Earth Day, we've talked in the past about having a big Earth Day event potentially. And then of course, the 4th of July. So I'll pause there. It's in the document. Does anybody have any thoughts generally about what's in there?
Let me just say that having an outline of events to come is very helpful for communication and helps get, gives us targets to work on to support those events.
Amy, did you consider coordination with events that are going on at Redwood?
No, I think we need, I'm sorry, David, let me just make sure I understood you. Did we coordinate with the team at Redwood?
No, did you look at coordinating some events or adding some events on your list that would be educational opportunities or gathering activities at Redwood?
No, but I think it's a great idea. I think Meredith had originally had someone who was part of the student ambassadors that was leading that program. So I need to reach out to that person and just infuse it. And I would suggest that for all the schools. So that's sort of an action item on here. And I need to chat with Meredith about that. Like, how can we infuse the student activity into this timeline and support?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion. I can just comment on the overall goals, which is just to build awareness with residents and businesses on the key facts and actions, and to move the needle on the key metrics and goals within the CAP. The 2 success metrics I put were interaction with the community in terms of a percentage. I put 10%, like 1,000 people. I don't know what folks think about that. And then collect 200 EV pledges through next year, which is proving to be harder than I think we had anticipated, sadly. And if no feedback, you guys can think it over and I can bring it back up at the next meeting. Okay, so I'm going to move on and pass it off to policy.
I think are we gonna do the website next?
Yeah,
How do you
I,
want to do that?
I think under the policy, we'll probably talk about that as part of the agenda item number 7,
Okay, all
the electrification.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So the website, am I passing that to you, David?
Sure. Bob, do you want me to share?
Pardon me?
Do you want me to share screen or
If you can, sure.
everybody has their packet, I guess. But I'll share because we've got the technology, we can do this. So I've forgotten when I did this. It was before this committee was official. And what I did is I looked at what the existing web interface was like, the landing page. And I added these notes. So some of it was typos, like we don't need this twice. Some of it was updating information. Some of it was going to change when we became an official body. And so I created I mocked up a different way to present the page. Or no, this is the planning commission page, which I thought was a more concise layout and more user friendly. And then lastly, what I did is I mocked up, this isn't like web design stuff. This is just mock up in Google Sheets. I mocked up what type of information I thought would be useful to have on the website as a resource for public. This is already kind of old, but and then I was hoping that we'd be able to have hyperlinks to things like the action plan, the climate action plan, and some other links. Even helping people understand that have other native languages, Spanish, for example, giving them links. And then I think we talked about the town policy tries to shy away from having links to outside organizations. So we'd have to look at if we want to, or how that works if we do want to include content and we host the content ourselves. But so I offer that up for discussion. It seems like we did this a long time ago, guys, but I think that we can have a more useful page. And I haven't looked at what the page looks like now, so I'm guilty of that.
I was just going to mention to Chair Johnson that yes, Rebecca did take a spin at revising the page. So it is different than what you saw a few months ago. So you might want to take a look and use that as your starting point.
I can help work on that as well. But I'd like to make a comment about the town not wanting to send people outside of the town itself. I think this is a huge problem because what we end up doing is either leaving off great resources that have been developed by others or trying to spend time and money to replicate or reinvent the wheel ourselves. So I would recommend that when there are good resources that we don't have to replicate, that will help the public do the work that is needed, that we include them on the website.
Leslie,
I think that's a really important thing.
Leslie, let's give one example of that. So there's organizations that are, excuse me, keeping live lists of rebate programs that are active and or when they're going to time out. And for the town of Corte Madera to maintain that list accurately would be an expensive proposition. So resources like that we'd like to link to and make them be available. And these would be NGOs, not for-profit companies.
And I think when we left this with having talked to the town attorney and the town clerk was that non-commercial sites, nonprofits and that sort of thing would be all right. Again, the concern is linking to anybody that has a profit motive. So I think that, again, nonprofits, other governmental agencies, that sort of thing would probably be fine.
That's good news. Thanks, Bob.
So now that town has started to modify the web page, does it make sense for the committee to each take a look at that and then come back? Should we act as a subcommittee and come up with recommendations to the committee? Or do we think we want to agendize this for the full committee?
So a couple things. One, I think we decided last meeting that this would actually sit under communication, the communications subcommittee.
Cool.
If I'm incorrect there, somebody let me know. And two, I would just say that we should really think through the amount of resource and time we put on the site until we know the amount of traffic. Like if we're not going to drive a ton of traffic to the site, or we're not seeing a lot of traffic on the site, I think we should think about how we build the resource, maybe in stages, because otherwise it could suck resources from the committee and the town without actually having a lot of a huge audience. It's my
Can I
take.
make a suggestion is that we do a sort of wireframes about what we want to see, what we think should be included, and then add as we have the bandwidth to add, or it's appropriate because there's something happening in town. But I think that even if people are just sort of cruising around and looking, that if it's not particularly useful or robust, they won't be interested in coming back. So you're right about not driving traffic at this point, but I think, you know, we should do wireframes and get the essential stuff up there in a way that's really accessible and useful for people.
Right. So do we, to David's question and the discussion of this living and communications subcommittee, does that seem right, or should we create a different approach there?
Who are the members of the communications subcommittee? It's Martin and Leslie, and who else?
Meredith.
Meredith.
Yeah, I'd move to have it moved to subcommittee and have them come back with some thoughts.
I have a question regarding that for Bob. How big could we make that subcommittee for dealing with this task before we run into the Brown Act?
3 people, 3 members.
3.
3, okay, all right.
Can we do an ad hoc website design team? Make it ad hoc so that David's put a lot of thought into this, and I think it would be good to keep your brain on this if you have the bandwidth.
You're too kind. You're too kind. I cranked this up pretty quickly.
You can say no.
If you do, I mean, what you're talking about, I think, is creating another ad hoc subcommittee, which will take, the committee action to do that. And again, it has to be 3 or fewer people on it.
Can it be 1?
To be 1 person. Talk among yourself.
You have to drag someone off the street.
Well,
That's a sub-autocracy.
Leslie, what do you think about the communications subcommittee taking a look at this, and then we agendize this for council and suggest that all the council members take a look at it, and we bring it back to this body once we've all looked at the website that the city has up.
And don't we have someone who works with the city who does the media? Is that right, Bob?
Yes, there are staff that handle the website. So again, what they've said is if you identify the changes, they'll be happy to work with implementing those.
Okay.
The first thing we have to do is look at what's there now, which
Yeah.
I don't think
Happy to do that.
Yeah.
okay, so just to round this out, so it is sitting with the communications ad hoc subcommittee.
Seems to be.
Okay.
Okay, that's a plan.
but not for long. And then we all, we all can take a look at the website on our own and not have a problem with the Brown Act, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and we'll agendize this for your next committee meeting as
Yeah.
well, so you can then debate it.
And I would offer that up for all the ad hoc subcommittees. Last meeting, we discussed making sure that the ad hoc subcommittees send their content out prior to the meeting so that it sits in the packet. That way people can review. So let's say there's feedback about the website. It comes out to the committee, we review it prior to the meeting, and then we discuss in the meeting what the actions or the next steps are. So I think that would be a great idea, not just for communications, but for the other two. So. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah. Do we need to make a motion or memorialize this in some way? Bob?
I think
Probably
so.
not. I think it's fine just to pass it off to the subcommittee.
Yeah, and we already agreed to this process, I think, in the last meeting, so I don't think it needs a vote.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that is it on subcommittee updates, well, website. And now we can move to the third ad hoc subcommittee of policy. And
I think we'll move to item number 7.
Yep.
Okay. All right, let me make a short presentation to you. You have a staff report in your packet, but let me go to, let's see. Let's see here. Slideshow. Beginning. Okay, you can all see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is the adoption of the new California Building Standards Code. Every 3 years, the state puts out a new model code, and it becomes the law of the land in California. But there are opportunities to do local amendments, and so that's what we're talking about today. So just by way of sort of the bigger picture, the building code has nestled within it a whole suite of specific codes: the fire code, the plumbing code, mechanical code, etc. But the ones that we're probably really interested in talking about tonight are two: the energy code and the green building code. So the idea would be the County of Marin has prepared a model REACH code to modify the standard building code. That process went on since about March of this year. I know the town's former building official was involved in a technical subcommittee. There have been a couple of workshops, public workshops, countywide, etc. So I will be describing what came out of that process. But one of the items is enhanced requirements for electric vehicle charging. So that would nest within as amendments within the green building code. And then another proposal, in which we'll go into more detail, is about requiring greater energy conservation measures as part of the energy code amendments. And then one that's really outside of the California Building Code itself would be the proposal to adopt regulations that for new buildings would allow only electric, would not allow gas infrastructure. So that's not really part of the building code. It would be adopted as a health and safety measure under the town's police powers. So the three model codes that the county developed, the first, again, is an all-electric construction for new buildings only. The second, it would be enhanced EV charging for new, and then also the county's proposed for some modifications. And again, that would nest as an amendment to the Cal Green Code. And then the last would be for single-family homes, additions, alterations of 750 square feet or larger. The proposal would there be to do some amendments to the energy code, and I'll describe each of those. And the reason for promoting electrification of buildings is pretty simple. When you look at the town's greenhouse gas emissions, about a third come from energy use in buildings. And when you split that out between natural gas and electricity, the electrical generation component is becoming less and less. And that's because our energy mix in the grid is becoming more based upon renewables, so higher proportions. So less greenhouse gases there, but natural gas stays the same. And again, as a piece of the puzzle, it becomes larger and larger over time. So the electrification for new buildings, again, precludes gas infrastructure from being installed or gas appliances in both residential and commercial buildings that are brand new. There are a number of exemptions that are sort of practical ones. One would be for outdoor propane barbecues and heaters. Those really are virtually impossible to regulate. Restaurants and commercial kitchens, so that's a big one. Restaurateurs tend to want their gas pizza ovens and other gas appliances for cooking. And so that has been exempted. Backup generators for essential services. So police, fire buildings, community centers that would be used for emergency shelters and that sort of thing. And for multifamily. In some of the focus groups, they talked to developers of affordable housing, and that was a particular concern because electric backup batteries, et cetera, become very, very costly. If you do diesel generators, they require great distance requirements from buildings. They're hard to locate. So natural gas emergency generators are much more practical. So that's the reason for this exemption. If there are attached accessory dwelling units within an existing mixed-use building, that ADU could tap into the existing gas infrastructure. Pretty hard to make sure that they don't once the infrastructure is in the building already. There are certain industrial uses that require what they call process heat. So really high energy industrial uses that in many cases electric is just not really practical. I don't think you have a lot of that here in Corte Madera. Maybe WinCup when they existed was that, but probably not anymore. And then there's a hardship and infeasibility waiver, which is pretty standard legally. And it also includes affordable housing projects. So if they can demonstrate that the costs of compliance affect the feasibility of the affordable units, then they could ask for an exemption. So the electrification requirements have already been adopted in San Anselmo and Fairfax. San Anselmo right now is just for residential new construction. Fairfax is for both residential and commercial. There's over 50 California cities that have adopted electrification requirements, so it's not entirely new. It's been increasing the last 4 or 5 years. And then a number of Marin jurisdictions are considering this as part of this code update. We don't know how their city councils or board of soups will react, but anyway, they're in process, and that includes Marin County, San Rafael, Corte Madera, Sausalito, Mill Valley, and Larkspur. So the enhanced EV charging infrastructure, the idea here is that, as you know, California is requiring that all vehicles sold after 2035 are electric, trying to get a jump on making sure that our buildings can accommodate electric charging, so electric vehicle charging. So the county's proposed code deals with both new construction, but also a couple of modifications to existing buildings. So I'll deal with the new construction first. So for single family duplexes or townhouses that have private garages, the proposal in the county reach code is to tag on to Cal Green Tier 1. So in the Cal Green code, there are the basic requirements, and then there are 2 tiers of enhanced requirements that towns can adopt. Corte Madera has not. So this would be imposing Tier 1, which means that that space has to be what's called EV ready. And so there's 2 categories: EV ready, which means that you have run the circuitry to an outlet. That's so it's a 240 outlet, has an outlet cover. It doesn't have a charging station on it, but you could just plug one right in. So that's the proposal here. Currently, the Cal Green base level, so the basic requirements in the new building code require that space be EV capable. So you have to run the raceway, so you have to run the conduit, but you don't have to run the wiring And you have to make sure that your electric panel has space for the additional 40 amp breaker. So that's the difference there. For new multifamily, the county's ordinance will require the installation of 15% of the spaces for residents, not guests, but residents. They would have to have installed level 2 chargers. And then 85% of the spaces would have to be EV ready for low power level 2. So the county, the state in their new Cal Green Code has defined 2 different kinds of charging. One would be a low level. So that's a 20 amp service instead of 40 amp. So it would be a slower charge than the 40 amp. But everything else would be the same. And that differs from Cal Green, which has 25% low power level 2 chargers, 10% EV ready low power. So again, the county ordinance is a significant difference in terms of essentially 100% of the spaces are ready to be charging. And then for new hotels, motels, they would require 10% to have level 2 chargers installed, 35% low power EV ready, and just 10% EV capable. And new non-residential, they would cite to Cal Green Tier 1 requirements, which have a range of spaces that require chargers or EV capable spaces based upon size. And it's really impossible to summarize that. So I think I've got that here. Yes. So in a new non-residential building, if it, for example, had up to 9 spaces, there are no charges required, and 2 spaces would be EV capable. If it had, for example, 26 to 50 spaces, 4 EV chargers would have to be installed and 11 would have to be capable. So again, as the number of spaces increase, so do the number of chargers and the number of EV capable spaces. And let me see if I can get to a previous slide. Yes, okay. So for additions and alterations, for single family duplex and townhouses with private garages, the county proposal would be that if a project upgrades its main electric service panel based upon other work that they're doing in the home, at that point, they would have to make sure they've got the capacity in that panel and run the conduit for, run the circuitry for an EV ready space. If they're doing other work in the home that doesn't require a panel upgrade, no requirements at all. And then for multifamily, hotels, and non-residential, again, if the project upgraded the main electrical service panel, then 20% of the spaces would have to have circuitry run and be EV ready. In addition, for those multifamily, hotels, non-residential projects, if they're tearing up the parking lot, removing asphalt, at that point, they would have to add conduit for at least 50% of the exposed parking spaces. Or they could add conduit to 20% of the spaces and install chargers in 5% of the spaces. So those are the 2 options there. So
multifamily, I think at 15%,
that's new construction.
new construction, and then
Yes.
remodels 20%.
What,
Maybe I
again,
got it.
remodels where they're upgrading the electric panel. So it's not brand new buildings. It's just a remodel of an existing apartment, for example.
Right. I just am curious about the 15 versus 20%, because it would seem to me you'd have higher on new versus.
Yeah, I guess it's the fact that in this case, 20% for remodels would be EV ready, and that's it. So only 20% of the spaces.
That's the difference.
Whereas in new construction, 100% of the spaces would have the potential for charging, but only 15 would have the chargers installed.
Thank you. You clarified.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So those are the proposals then for EV infrastructure. So again, they go beyond the base code. And then probably the more complicated of all the proposals has to do with energy efficiency requirements for remodels of single family homes where you are adding or altering up to over 750 square feet of conditioned space. And there the county is using what's called a flexible pathway tool. So it's a listing of potential measures with points, and you have to pick and choose to get up to a certain level of points. And it's everything from changing out certain appliances from gas to electric, adding insulation, sealing a building, sealing ducts, upgrading windows, upgrading lighting. To get the number of points you need, you pretty much have to do at least one appliance upgrade. So you really have to convert at least one appliance, whether it's, a hot water heater, HVAC unit. You pretty much have to convert at least one from gas to electric. So that's the requirement there. At the last meeting, Chair Johnson asked the question, so how many permits a year are we really talking about here that would be affected by the ordinance? And so we did a tally. So in the past almost 3 years, no, 2 years, I'm sorry. No, in the past, it would be a total of 3 years. There were 2 new single family or multifamily buildings that came through for building permits. 1 non-residential building. Again, this is per year. And the data on the single family additions is a little suspect because, again, the way that the town tallies and records data, these would be additions. They do not include alterations of 750 square feet or more. So again, this is not a complete picture on the 6 per year here.
Bob, thanks for doing that on the
6 per year.
on the multifamily. How many were affordable during this time frame?
Were affordable housing developments? I don't believe anywhere.
Okay, thanks.
So the staff recommendation is that the town council, Adam, do you have anything you want to add first?
I think
You want to come to the mic?
Yeah, please do, because we can't hear you here in Dallas.
I'm talking to Dallas. Huh? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Phil, do you know the multifamily permit that was issued or referred to? I would say the one most recent multifamily building permit that I'm aware of was the Casa Buena. It wasn't actually managed by this town, but it was the formerly Casa Buena Hotel, which is now the Home Key project, which is the Casa Buena project for formerly homeless individuals.
Okay.
So correct.
Okay. So again, a staff recommendation, staff would recommend to the town council that they adopt as part of this code adoption cycle, the all electric requirement for new construction and the enhanced EV infrastructure requirements for new construction. And the suggestion is that the code changes both EV upgrades and the energy efficiency upgrades would be related to remodels, that those would come back next year. Both for additional work with other cities. I don't think that part of the collaboration was, entirely concluded. There was still a lot of remaining issues that the county was sorting through, and their last revision only came out in October. And really, there hasn't been a lot of public outreach on this issue. And again, when you're talking about remodels of single family homes, now you're talking about touching a lot of individuals in the community and wanting to make sure that there's, good communication that this is occurring and that people have an opportunity to know. And I know that the CAC had talked about wanting to do a big push with public education as well. So again, the idea is to bring back the remodel discussion in 2023 for more robust work between the building officials in the various towns and also for more community outreach. So with that, we'd be happy to take your questions. Thomas Ahrens, who is the interim building official since Chris left, is here and he's manning the shop right now. So he's very familiar with REACH codes and the building codes. So between the two of us and the town manager's here as well. So we'll try to field your questions.
So can you just clarify, Bob, what is being recommended to not be adopted at this time? It's EV.
It would be I'll go back and show you. It would be the EV requirements for the additions alterations. So again, that's where a panel upgrade is occurring in a remodel. So that would not be affected currently by the staff recommendation. And then again, when parking lots are torn up. So those are the two instances for remodels for upgrading the EV charging infrastructure. Those would not be added to this code adoption. And then secondly, the energy efficiency requirements for single family remodels. So the EV requirements for new construction and the electrification requirements for new construction are proposed to be incorporated in this code adoption cycle.
And Fairfax and what was the other community have already adopted the Marin County recommendations?
They adopted their own in advance of Marin County. So they're a little different. And for example, San Anselmo only deals with residential, not commercial. New construction.
And what is the rationale for not including the electric charging to existing buildings?
You mean for the remodels when the panel is upgraded and or the parking lot is torn up?
Yeah.
Part of it, and Bob touched on this, is that there's a lot of public outreach that should probably take place ahead of time, and we want to get input from the community, and there's also administrative issues with establishing, what is an alteration. So when 750 feet of alteration, we'll have, a classic example might be if in one particular room you're replacing the window in this room, do you include the entire square footage of the room, or do you only include like a 3-foot swath adjacent to the window and so forth? So there are some policy decisions that we have to figure out into how we define what's an altered space, because we're going to get a lot of pushback from those community members that may not want to go to these additional provide these additional infrastructure when they're doing something that's unrelated. Additionally, because it's I don't have a big objection to the single family remodel. I think that's an easy sell. But again, without the public outreach and the sort of buy-in from the community, I think that's our primary concern here.
But in the numbers we saw is that over the past couple of years, there's been 6 of those per year. So
again, that's added square footage. That doesn't really address alterations of 750 square feet or more.
Can we find the number of alterations that have happened?
No, that we just they don't segregate the data in the permit tracking system that way.
But could you, because I understand, and I think we talked a little bit about this last time, if somebody, to your point, is putting in a window and now all of a sudden they have to install a heat pump or something, that's a different discussion. But if there's 6 that are getting classified as remodels, additions, could we implement this point system and start there, given the low number, as an introduction to the community? I'm just throwing it out there.
one of the rationales.
Yeah, I just think one of the points also, I mean, this was discussed essentially with the response to the grand jury report as well at the town council, and the town council's response, I think, addressed remodels as part of that response to the grand jury. So, but I think it's just really critical to make sure that there's broad community outreach on any of these issues for the variety of reasons. Definition of even what I think the alteration, 750 square feet. There's a variety of different definitions already in terms of how that's counted between, let's say, the fire department versus public works for flood purposes. And so, and why 750? That's just the county had proposed that, and I'm not exactly sure where they got that number, but I'm sure we'll be asked. And so we need to do, I think, really some discussion and have a discussion with the community residents, along with education about why it's the benefits of doing so. But I think arriving at that through an approach of doing community outreach is something I think is just really critical before we have a proposal on remodels, just given how it may affect a wide swath of our community. Whereas new buildings, essentially, obviously, we're talking about new constituents here, essentially.
From what I've heard between the various scuttlebutt between cities, I think only Fairfax is likely to adopt the energy efficiency upgrades for the single family remodels. And I think that they're proposing to go down to 250 square feet. And then the county is going to adopt the whole package. But I don't think other cities, this code update this year, are going to propose to adopt the energy efficiency requirements for remodels.
I'm gonna jump in here, raise my hand. We're at the end of 22, and really this is our last decade to make the changes that we need to make. Energy efficiency is the highest impact at this level that we can possibly implement. The kilowatt hour that we don't use and don't pay for is the best kilowatt hour. So to take a pass on this, or to push it out another 6 months or year or 2 years, I think is a mistake. And since there are so few of these applications coming forward, I think that we really need to be a little bit more aggressive. Community outreach, I mean, the county's been doing this for a year to 18 months. There's been community outreach. Perhaps it's our bad if we haven't done more locally. It sort of has bubbled up to us as a community committee. But I really do think that this is not asking an awful lot. It's not that complicated. And while I'm all for community input and community outreach, I think it's essential, especially on the education side. I don't think that these are draconian asks that are going to upset someone's apple cart so terribly that the downside is that we continue to let another year or 2 or 3 pass before we really are pushing these changes that need to happen. So I need to push back on this a little bit. I recognize your concerns. I appreciate them. But we need to be much more, we need to be bolder, we need to make decisions, and we need to be, we don't need to just leave Fairfax out there doing the heavy lifting. We need to be a leader as well. And I think we have an opportunity to bring others on and create a critical mass where we might get more cities engaged more quickly. I mean, the fact that we can't do a countywide, all 12 jurisdictions engaged reach code is just astonishing to me. I can understand that in Contra Costa maybe, or some other counties that have so many cities that are so different, but we should be able to do this in Marin. So I would really charge all of us to be more assertive on this and be good advocates for these changes that really need to happen.
I think I can speak for the policy subcommittee that when we've been tracking these suggested reach codes, they seem to be pretty timid and didn't go very far at all. So it would be easy for us to advocate for even more aggressive measures to be taken to address our climate action goals. But I think that the preference was to assist the county and the region in creating a consistent set of codes from community to community, and for Corte Madera to be part of the leader of that consistent code, so that tradespeople can go from community to community and it can be more predictable. It's going to take people to step up, and like Leslie said, it more than just Fairfax. It seems really logical to me to incorporate the reach codes into the code cycle update that's taking place in early 23, rather than to create another set of amendments, another code discussion to delay this further. So I think it was the county's hope, it was the hope of many that these things could be implemented simultaneously, so we don't get the delay and the confusion of multiple code updates in a community that's so small. It seems to me like I recall cover of the IJ a couple days ago explaining this very clearly above the fold. And I think there's been many opportunities for the community to be exposed to these recommendations from the county. So I'm a little bit confused about the need for more outreach, because it seems like the press has been very consistent in informing the public. But I'd like to hear from others, I guess.
So I'd like to speak to the consistency issue. I think that's an important point. We that have to administer this on a day-to-day basis, I can't help but be empathetic to the building community and to the design community. So these are architects, contractors, designers, developers. It's very difficult when we have regulations that vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Also, I think we should also appreciate the fact that the California Energy Commission and the ICC together during their normal code adoption process have been fairly aggressive, particularly here in California. If you compare California to other parts of the nation, as far as creating regulations for for energy conservation, for building environmental protection, as well as for reduction in greenhouse gases. So all of this is I see these changes come through all the time. We are constantly changing our review process and our inspection process for both new additions, new construction, as well as building additions. And frankly, the state's being fairly aggressive. So this is what I see that's going on in the background. For us to take additional steps, it's commendable. It's well intentioned, but I think it does create some hardships and a lot of administrative complications with respect to our day-to-day operation in controlling the built environment within the community. So I just wanted to kind of go on the record and remind everyone that we are the state is working aggressively to bring these regulations into play. And I think over the next couple of code cycles, we're going to see a lot of the things that we're proposing will come in to legislation and will be adopted during the normal code process. I think Bob probably sees that general movement as well by the state. So,
Well, thank you for that. I understand that, but the next code cycle is 3 years away. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so that puts us halfway through this decade and then some. And there's really no reason to do that. I mean, I appreciate the hurdles or the obstacles, but I'd rather look at how to better solve those. For instance, if it's a staffing issue, then let's recommend to the town council that more money be put towards the department to add another half FTE or a full FTE or whatever staff thinks they need to really start implementing these things. But waiting another 3 years is not acceptable. It just isn't. Waiting for the state to tell us what to do when we have the opportunity to move more quickly in the Bay Area now, I think it's a terrible missed opportunity. So if there are obstacles that we can address and solve those problems without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I think that that would be a more constructive approach.
Bob, do we need to, you've provided a very high level summary of staff's recommendations, but does it make sense for us to kind of walk through the longer document that staff prepared as a recommendation? So we don't shortcut what they've written?
I'm not sure of the longer, what do you
It's
mean?
in the packet.
Oh, the staff report that I sent to you?
Yeah.
You can, sure you can.
Is there something that staff wants to highlight in that? I'm assuming this is a draft of what they would be sending to
It is.
council.
It is. And again, basically, I've summarized at the end, the idea is to adopt the all electric requirements for new construction, to adopt the EV charging enhanced requirements for new construction, and then to come back and deal with both the EV charging for remodels and the energy efficiency upgrades for remodels in the next year.
And what if this committee doesn't agree?
Then you can make whatever recommendation you choose to the town council. That's part of their input.
Okay. The policy subcommittee sent you a draft, and then right before this meeting, I got a couple of edits from one of my subcommittee members. So I sent a revision. Can we enter that into the record?
I don't know that I have it, but yeah, and I can't really access it from this computer. Do you have something on that you can show on the screen?
Sure.
Okay. And again, you can, the subcommittee, policy subcommittee can make a motion for a recommendation to the town council and then get a second, and then the committee can vote on that, or you can modify that.
Okay. It looks like you have to unshare so I can share.
Oh, okay. That's very true.
And so because of the
Sure.
Brown Act,
So to
because of,
confirm, David, what you're sharing is the policy ad hoc subcommittee's recommendations.
yep.
Okay.
And because of the Brown Act, we weren't able to share this with you prior. But this is what I sent. It's edited very slightly, Bob, from what I sent a week ago or so. So this is a report from the policy subcommittee of the CAC. And a recommendation is that we recommend that the town of Corte Madera Town Council adopt the model reach codes as described by the County of Marin, and that these reach codes be integrated in the 2022 Building Code 2023 update. We described briefly why. Mark, these were notes that Phil supplied from one of the meetings. Or I modified some notes that Phil supplied from one of his meetings. But the building code is one of the few tools that we have to affect changes in our community. And adopting these codes are going to accelerate our ability to make meaningful reductions in emissions. Every day we delay extends the emissions into the city. Every city matters. Marin Clean Energy has affirmed that the grid is reliable with the adoption of these codes. So there may be some people that are concerned that electrification of this order of magnitude is going to cause a problem. And Marin Clean Energy has gone on record by saying that's not a problem. And then the adoption would create a more simplified and unified approach across the entire county. The county is going to adopt these, I believe. So Corte Madera would be synchronized with all of the lands in the county. In the rationale, I went a little long. I'm not going to go through all of that right now, but the structure of the document then included for my colleagues on the committee some background and supporting information, including what action the town has taken that supports the adoption of the REACH code. Notably, on December 1st of 2020, Town Council approved a resolution declaring a climate emergency. The climate action plan was completed in that same month, and they approved a climate adaptation assessment after some work. And then the town council recognizes the need for ongoing technical assistance to address the policy priority of climate action. I think that's from the general plan. So the purpose of this body, the Climate Action Committee, as defined by the town, shall be the advisory body to town council on matters relating to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and implementing the climate action plan. I think it's well within our purview to recommend this adoption. And then I kept in there for some of us, just a reminder of what our purpose is. That was defined in a resolution by the town, and then some supporting documents. The purpose for this subcommittee, the purpose of the subcommittee and the committee is to help Corte Madera achieve its greenhouse gas emission reductions. And that's why we came to the recommendation and the brief summary that we had here. So if it's okay, Bob, I'd like to enter this into the record.
Sure. Do you want to also then, again, your recommendation is number 1. Do you want to move that and see if you can get a second and discussion?
Sure. Do I have a motion to accept the recommendation of the policy subcommittee?
Do committee members have the honor of making the motion? Or does someone else have to do that?
Committee member Simon made the motion. Is there a second?
Okay, I'll second.
Is there any discussion? And I'm sorry that you can't benefit from the document that the subcommittee put together.
Actually, let me
What
clarify for the future. If you do have something like this that you want to submit as part of the packet, you could do so, because then it's public information and it's fine with the Brown Act. So that's the way to go in the future, FYI.
Okay. Yeah, and I saw on the agenda there was potential for action, which I thought was enough notice for public that we may be making a recommendation.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
And any other discussion? Amy, I'd love to hear, or Martin.
What exactly is being suggested or put on the table here? That this is what we're going to recommend to the town council?
Yeah, I think that the reach codes are pretty timid compared to other reach codes and other communities. The Marin County, the Marin County spent a long time defining what the reach codes would be most appropriate in this region to be, in this county to be. And the town has provided a draft letter that they present to council, recommending that part of those reach codes be adopted, but not all. And so what the subcommittee here is proposing, Martin, is that we agree with the county on their recommendations on reach codes.
Okay, so that would mean that's what we're recommending, that the council adopt the reach codes as provided by the model, and that's fine. What will the council do with that?
They'll take it under advisement.
Yeah, we're
along
an
with the staff
advisory.
report.
Yeah, we don't make
All
it.
right.
We're
So
just
as long as we
advisory.
don't, fine, as long as we don't, and I think Leslie said it in a good way, which is throw the baby out with the bathwater by doing this, we want something to be adopted, right? So something's better than nothing. And if what we do here, throws up a roadblock there, we don't want to do that. On the other hand, if we're making this recommendation because we believe this is what we should do, and then the town council decides, now we're just going to do the new construction stuff, then that's what would happen. Do I have that right?
Correct. The council can adopt the base building code. They can adopt staff recommendation for the new construction only, or they could adopt, the entire reach code package if that was incorporated into an ordinance that was put in front of them.
We're just making a recommendation.
Okay,
Exactly.
And they could also suggest that staff go back and come back in December with updates or changes or additions that the council directs staff to do.
okay.
I think as a body in the town of Corte Madera, we're going to start to get used to acting faster. I don't think this is a time to be timid. I think we need to start acting and reacting faster. We don't have a lot of time to be dawdling here. These are pretty timid codes, actually.
So this is Amy, I'm okay with the recommendations. I'm for the recommendations that the subcommittee put forward. I think this is, and that's not hearing the difficulty in what this means in terms of the building community and the staff. But I also think that we have an opportunity to make a difference, and this is hard stuff. And I think if, to your point, Leslie, if we outline the obstacles of what gets in the way here, how do we outline what needs to happen, whether that's staff, whether that's education, and work together to make it happen. So I'm in favor of the recommendation.
This will also be a good vehicle. Public outreach. Fact that it's being discussed by the town council. And that the town council will discuss this amongst themselves, and it may be a lively discussion.
I think that the presentation you shared, Bob, was really helpful. And the number of new buildings that are going to be affected was really helpful. What brought it to my mind is that we need to address the existing housing stock and decarbonize it. And that's the hard work. And we need to start to step up and act on that now.
Okay. Amy, do you want to take a vote? Call for a vote.
So we had a motion and we had a second. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, then that's your unanimous recommendation. And as I understand it, you'd like to send the full text of what the policy subcommittee has just put on the screen, right?
And that'd be my preference. Is there any objection from my committee members?
No, none whatsoever. And what I guess what I'd like to, I don't know if this is possible, Bob, you can help us with this, but since half of our committee hasn't had a chance to look at this prior to this evening, I would suspect that there might be some really good ideas out there from others, or maybe not. Maybe there's no editing or amendments that anyone wants to make, but
When is
I was
council-
hoping,
when is
I'm sorry?
council- When is council, Bob, when is council expected to?
I think that's November 9th, but you won't have a meeting between now and then. So whatever you adopt tonight is what you have. Again, with the Brown Act, you can't be tweaking things between now and then.
Yeah, and a couple just logistical. So actually the introduction of the ordinance would be next Tuesday, November 1st.
Oh, sorry.
And then 2 weeks later would be potential adoption November 15th. And that's because you want to have this thing enacted after adoption by January 1st, 2023. And maybe Thomas, you can speak to that a little bit more, and just in terms of what happens if you don't, I don't really know. I don't know if that's
Right, it's not catastrophic. The state codes would be adopted by default on January 1st without any local adoptions if we didn't make that date.
Leslie, I share your desire.
January 1st.
I understand the desire to have a chance to make little edits, but maybe we not let perfect be enemy of the good, and we let this go as is.
I am in complete agreement.
Okay.
And it sounds like we're all on board with that. So yes, and thank you so much for crafting this.
Okay, very good. Then we will.
So Bob, does this would then, I guess what I'm asking is, the first reading will be next week, or the staff report will come to the council on Tuesday?
Yes.
I would expect that we would have an opportunity to speak to our recommendation Tuesday
Sure.
evening.
And they'll be incorporated in the staff report.
Okay. Okay, and that's published on Thursday or Friday?
Right, Friday. Just gonna be,
Friday.
it'll be a rush.
Okay. Okay, so then we should probably, as a group, plan on showing up next Tuesday evening. And we should probably figure out who might speak to this when it comes up on the agenda.
They will again have your submittal, but yes, you can certainly speak at the meeting as well.
Yeah, I think that having an opportunity along with staff to present the options would be a nice exercise in democracy.
What time is their meeting?
It's late 6:30.
So can I clarify that? Is there an opportunity to present that during the meeting, or does it have to be a public comment in the beginning?
Typically, typically a commission, my experience, it would be commission member representative of the committee or commission would come and relay during public comment
Okay,
the recommendation of the committee members and speaking on behalf of the committee members.
Yes.
And speaking to obviously what's in the staff report. So
okay,
Well, I think it would be important to note that as a committee appointed by the council, that we should have a little bit more than 2 or 3 minutes to speak. This needs to be, obviously,
that's the discretion of the mayor, yeah, would be.
right, but I think staff might be able to influence that as well. I mean, this is not a 2-minute, Hail Mary pass. This is an important conversation. And I think that it should be accorded, legitimate time on the agenda. So it's not just staff report. There should be, input from the committee at the same time. And I'd like to request that be put on the agenda that way.
Well, again, the town does have its council protocol. So I think what the town manager was saying is that you can certainly request that the mayor grant additional time when you speak.
so that's the way. So during public comment, you
Yes.
give public comment and then ask for additional time when the agenda
Yes.
comes up.
Yes.
Seems
Well,
to
it'll be agendized, and so we won't be making comments at the very beginning of the meeting when there's open time for people to speak, when just things that are not on the agenda. But
No.
when that agenda item comes up, there'll
Exactly.
be discussion, there'll be presentation, there'll be discussion by the council, and then public comment. So what I'm suggesting is that we have an opportunity to speak before the council, before they deliberate,
No.
and then ask for
You will.
public comment.
The order is that there's a staff report, council questions of staff, and then the public hearing. And after the public hearing is closed, then council deliberation. So you will definitely
Okay.
be speaking before the council discusses the substance of the item.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. Leslie,
This is the same for all our commissions that have important items as well that they consider during the course of their agendas and then making recommendations to the council. So it's just consistent practice.
Understood, thanks.
Okay.
Committee members, Greenbuild is next week. I'm on the host committee, and I'm receiving an acknowledgement on the night of the 1st for some work I've been doing. Is there somebody else that can be there at the council meeting? I apologize. It would be difficult for me to be there.
You.
Huh?
Can someone on the policy subcommittee want to represent?
I can do that.
Thank you,
Um,
Leslie.
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you. Yeah, but are you going to be home this weekend?
Yes.
You can
Yes.
help prep me for that. Great.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And I know we're going to try to finish this meeting on time.
Yes.
And so I just want to have a quick comment. Am I allowed to connect with the policy subcommittee, even though I'm not part of the subcommittee prior to the meeting, or no?
No, because then that would be 4 of you at that point.
Leslie and I can have a discussion if we want to
Yes.
meet before that.
Yes.
Leslie, would you be up for that?
Yeah, the policy subcommittee can meet. There's 3 of
Right.
you. That's fine.
Yeah, that's
You-
fine,
you-
Martin. I'm sorry, Phil. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else that we need to discuss prior moving on to future agenda items related to this and November 1st, next Tuesday, or the recommendation.
Good moment for some press, Martin.
Chronicles.
I'm
And
sorry. Yes, it'll be an interesting job putting that together.
thank you to the policy subcommittee for all the work there. Future agenda items, and then I want to close
So
it out.
we'll have the website coming back, website discussion coming back next month.
Okay,
We'll have a presentation by Tamara Peters of Resilient Neighborhoods. So that's a program that the town supports financially and operates the entire county. I think you'll be impressed with the results that they get.
great.
And
Can I-
that's all I
Can
have.
I
If
make
you
a
have anything else.
suggestion there?
Yes.
Is there anything they can send out prior to the meeting that we can review?
Sure.
That way we can digest the content and maybe come with thoughtful questions. Sometimes
Can do.
I need that. The other thing that I had mentioned was the town plan. And the existing town plan and maybe the next version of the town working plan. Todd had shared this with us at one point because it
You mean the-
allows us.
Is this the council strategic plan or?
Yeah, so it allows us to know what the town staff is prioritizing in a year so that when we make recommendations or suggestions around things that we start to organize around, at least it dovetails into what you're currently prioritizing.
Yeah, so you're talking about the annual work plan and the budget process.
End of the year, but we're having, yeah. With 2020.
Right, 2022 or the next year, 20. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Do we have the 2022 one? Maybe we already have it. If it hasn't been. We have that then. Okay,
Just. There'll be the plan right now is for the strategic work plan special meeting with the town council to be held in January. Obviously, we're getting new council members as well, so
yeah.
want to include them in the work plan process for 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Thank you. All right.
Good.
Anything else before we adjourn this meeting? Do I have to hit this? Meeting adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
For
Good night.
everyone traveling.